players all across the board, including at the center position, the power forward position, the inside players. The big men have been extinct. They become extinct as a result of the rules changes. Of course, the NBA, like when the NBA changed the rules around 2004, 2005, they specifically said to open up the floor, which means to open up the floor for your guards to get to the basket faster and score much faster, and give them a better chance to score. Open up the floor means to give the guards, to give the guards more room, to score easier. So it feels bigger, it feels bigger, stronger, faster. Name me anybody that that can match up with the likes of Shaq in his prime, or David Robinson, Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, okay, Moses Malone, Kareem, whatever, Karl Malone, whatever, big men, giants. But yet, who does the NBA have today? Dwight Howard? With a limited offensive game? Come on now. Andrew Bynum, who has arthritic knees, degenerative knees or whatever. Today's league is, it's just watered down. David Robinson in and of himself destroys this whole notion of today's players are bigger, stronger, faster, because he was the definition of bigger, stronger, faster, 7'1", about 250 pounds. Who had amazing speed for a guy his size, his speed and agility. The way he was able to run the floor. Pretty much like a guard or a small forward. The way he was able to get to the basket so much faster. If you put Dwight Howard on him, he was smoking. The Ever was smoking in and of himself. Hakeem Olajuwon will barbecue a guy like Dwight Howard. Yeah, straight up. Bigger, stronger, faster. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's not just hilarious. That's just really a really bad joke in and of itself. If anything, like I said, the NBA's actually gotten smaller, because in 1987, 87 and 88 were documented as the tallest years in NBA history. And like I said, the number, just looking at the names of the guys, who came in during that time, and I just say all that to say that the fact that, in spite of that, even though those were the tallest years in NBA history, in spite of that, ironically, Michael Jordan went on to average two of his best. Michael Jordan went on to have two of his best scoring averages of his entire career. In 1987, 37.1 points per game. 1988, over 35 points per game. Two of his best scoring averages in NBA history, and two of the tallest years in NBA history. What does that say? But yet today's athletes are bigger, stronger, faster, more advanced. MJ in the era with big men, giants, averaged 35 and 37 points per game. But yet these guys in today's game, with the rules specifically catered to them, with baskets and points gift wrapped to them, can't even average that. In a weaker league, with no big men, with no threat in the back, with no threat down low that once you got past your defender, no threat down low. So that the moment you got past your defender to go straight to the hoop, you'll get knocked to the floor. You don't have that threat. They don't have to worry about that anymore. They don't have to worry about having enforcers camped down in the paint, ready to knock their head off. They don't have to worry about a Shaq, Mutombo, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, these guys like that, standing there just waiting for them to come so they could pounce on them. They don't have that threat anymore. Especially like I said, I respect greatness in history, and like I said, I'm the type of guy that puts things in perspective. I mean, this is just a a whole nother can of worms in and of itself. I mean, like I said, this just further goes to show that today's league is not bigger, stronger, or faster, or anything like that. And even even when you look at the MVP races, even during the times that MJ did win, even in the times where MJ did win the league MVP, if you look at the guys who finished second, third, fourth, whatever, fifth place behind them, look at the numbers that they put up. They put up more MVP worthy numbers even in that time. Even guys who finished in second, third place, just look at the production they put in and of themselves. I mean, just look at like when like during during 92, 93, what have you. I mean, just look at the 93 season in and of itself, when Michael finished in third place, even though he should have been in first place in my view. But look at the numbers that guys like Charles Barkley put up, Akeem Olajuwon put up. You know what I'm saying? That was so much. I mean, like I said, that in and of themselves. Look at the competition that MJ faced, even in the MVP race, let alone the playoffs and the NBA Finals. Look at the competition that he faced even when winning the MVP. It wasn't as unanimous as it is now, whereas LeBron was head and shoulders above everybody else. LeBron nearly became the unanimous MVP. What does that say? With all due respect to LeBron, with all due respect to him, I mean, what does that say in and of itself? You don't have enough MVP caliber guys, MVP worthy guys in today's NBA. That's my point. Hello. Even during all the other times, you had far more MVP caliber players back then that I named earlier. Your Barkleys, Olajuwons, Robinsons, Ewings, what have you, Carmelo, MVP caliber players, and their body of work spoke for itself. So my thing is, I'm not just so much of a fan of these guys just because they're in the Hall of Fame and they're considered that they were called top 50 players by default. I go back and and of course I was born in '89, so so I was very, very young watching them anyway. But I go by like what I finally remember, and also I go on YouTube and stuff, and just to watch these games, like watch them again, just to further freshen my memory, and it's, and most importantly, also look at more. Actually, let me start over. I'll just finally admire these players, just because I grew up watching them, and they're now retired in the Hall of Fame and all this other stuff. But also, I go back and and just watch the way they played in their prime, especially, and also also go on and do my own research and see the numbers that they put up in their prime. You know what I'm saying? See these different highlights of them in their prime. So like I said, stats along with observation. So I hold them in high regard, like I said, especially I hold them in high regard because, especially with what they did in their best years, how dominant they were when they were at the top of their game. That's the big difference. These guys, in all these different areas of sports, really, they had a game that you could thoroughly respect. These guys, I hold them in such high regard because they had a game that you could truly respect. And the league at the time was loaded with terrific players. NFL, same thing, whatever. These guys, like I said, plus they carried themselves in a more respectful way. Back then, the NBA was no boys allowed. Now, you got straight up kids. Of course, we all know it was a much more physical game. But like I said, I guess that was just, like really, that was a whole rant in and of itself, because that's one thing I'm so passionate about, because I'm the type of guy that just respects greatness. I respect history. I can't stand it, when like when history is diminished, especially with the NBA, when people say that today's league is bigger, stronger, faster, like these guys were dinosaurs or like these guys back then were dinosaurs or munchkins or anything like that. I'll go ahead and say the guys back then were actually better athletes and better players and bigger than even now. Go back and watch old highlights of Charles Barkley with the Philadelphia 76ers, with that coast to coast, coast to coast dunk where where he gets the rebound from one end and flies all the way down, to the other end to finish up the play. Go watch Clyde the Glide Drexler. Go watch old highlights of the Admiral David Robinson all over on YouTube. Go ahead and look up these guys for yourself on basketballreference.com and all this other stuff, and you will see why they're in the Hall of Fame. You will see why they were so great, not just because of their final career numbers. That's cool, but also in the middle of also in the middle of their careers, what they did. And of course, we could also go into the whole career numbers thing as well. But like I said, especially I guess, just this whole thing, with especially with the NBA, it's just that's where it's, just the worst for me. Where legends are are downgraded and diminished. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad in boxing too, but but especially with with basketball in and of itself. I mean, that's taking up a lot of my time on this video, but yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's a whole different mindset. Back then you had guys who were straight up gladiators, who were straight up warriors, who took their craft seriously, who took their game seriously, who put in the time, who put in the work to get better, and the results spoke for themselves. Whereas today you have a few gems here and there, but overall you don't have it as much because there's so much greed that's polluted, politics, entitlement. These prima donna attitudes are much more prevalent, in today's sports world, in today's media. It's just merely a sign of the times that we're living in. And so so meanwhile, guys from back then, really had to earn their keep much more. They really had to prove themselves much more. Even the great MJ, Michael Jordan himself, we talk about a lot, faces fair share of struggles, with his team. You know what I'm saying? So, these guys back then, had so much more desire and passion that that today's game is greatly missing. It's my main point. It's just like the desire to be better. And the drive and the passion, you really don't see that. The intensity in the games, you don't see that anymore. Sure, a lot of these guys back then, were still friends off the court. But when they got on the court, when they got on the field, when they got in the ring, they wanted to knock each other's heads off. They wanted to beat one another. They wanted to win. The friendship, you could leave it off the court. But as for my job, as for my craft, I'm going to take it seriously, and I want to win. I want to be the best. But now you don't get that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, whatever. I mean, like for me, I could go on YouTube and watch games from like the 1993, 92, whatever, NBA Finals or All-Star game, and get more excited about that than I do even in today's games. So I mean, really, I can't stand the drama. I can't stand the circus. I can't stand the, the little parade. It's like ESPN's become more like TMZ now. It's just a circus, and I really have no time for it. Back then it was, especially within like the 80s, 90s, around that time, even within the very early 2000s, it was a great balance of athleticism and IQ. That's the thing, if you could sum up that time period, in one way, if you could really sum it up, it's just that it was much more balanced. Back then, it was just a much greater balance, and that's what's severely lacking. You know, severely lacking. A lack of balance. Anytime you change the rules to favor one side of the court, the perimeter, and and just completely, just completely exclude the inside, the big men, which are the most valuable players of all time. That's not balanced. Anytime you have to specifically change the rules to cater to the guards, open up the floor, meaning, like when they say open, like I said before, when they say open up the floor, in other words, that just means for perimeter players to score easier. We're going to give them an easier chance to score. We're going to take away the defense so they don't have to work as hard. They could just go in at ease. Whereas really, the game was great before. So if it's not broke, why fix it? Why try to fix it? If it wasn't broke already, why even touch it? That's my biggest gripe. You take out hand checking, and really that's what. I'm just saying. Really stuff like that. That's what made players better. It gave them more of a challenge. Like I said, but yeah, like I said, I guess that was a rant in and of itself. I could probably do another I could just go ahead and do another video about just about the state of the NBA, in and of itself. But yeah, all in all, I'm not the type of guy that doesn't acknowledge one's greatness because I never grew up watching them. As I've said over and over. There's so many different avenues and venues, for me to learn, learn more about athletes from yesteryear, from the past. You know what I'm saying? So, just like how I didn't grow up watching Walter Payton, but yet, like I said, there's so many different great videos and stuff here on YouTube. Where I could watch them for myself. I've already seen his numbers in the Hall of Fame and whatever, and that helps me come to my conclusion, draw my own observation. You know what I'm saying? I don't just say it just because everybody else wants to say he's the greatest or whatever, but I followed up for myself. I grew up watching Rice, but I was born like when he was like deep in the middle of his prime, so it's like it's like I have a shaky recollection here and there, but but at the same time, I've seen at least enough of Jerry Rice to know how great he was, but to go back and watch watch old highlights of him in Montana especially is very refreshing. Gives it helps him. It's helped me put his career in a greater light. And so yeah. Like I said, there's no excuse at all for someone to say, "Oh, I can't really say too much about him, because didn't see him play, whatever." Everybody's different, of course. Everybody's different, but especially to those who really don't care to learn more about the game, the younger fans, seriously strongly advise you to go back, go on Google, go on YouTube and stuff. That's what it's for. For you to learn more, learn more about the game, learn more about these guys before you want to throw stones at them. That's all I gotta say. That's just, like I said, I'm just just the type of guy who, who just understands and admires and respects the history. You know what I'm saying? Especially in closing, not just, with YouTube, but also with things like Sports Illustrated. You know what I'm saying? I used to collect those all the time. And, like when I read about these guys, like Rice, Jordan, Magic, what have you, you know what I'm saying? Automatically, I was hooked. I was hooked there as well. And it just, something like that, even with the Sports Illustrated magazine, it really left a lasting, it just helped. It just really left even more of a lasting impression. Let me rephrase that. Overall, I'm more so a fan of someone who can leave a lasting imprint, lasting impression on the game. That's what I'm a fan of. That's what I'm a fan of. Just so happens some of these guys that I've named before have left a very lasting imprint on the game. I'll never forget. Guys like Magic Johnson, left a lasting imprint on me to the point where I felt like I was actually grew up in the 80s watching him. Watching those highlights. So, when I read about these guys like Sugar Ray Leonard, what have you, in these old Sports Illustrated magazines, automatically, whatever, I was hooked. So, that's the mark of greatness. There are certain guys, who have enough power, who have enough influence, what I'm saying, with how they dominated in their time, that they could leave a forever lasting impression for years and years to come. Because really, that's the point of playing. That's the point of getting into the game, so that you'll be remembered for years and years to come. That's what a legend is. Someone who left such an indelible mark that that people from generations before, like myself right now, can still talk about them. That's the point, because even with these guys right now, later on they'll be a part of history, whether good or bad. What you do right now is going to be a part of history anyway, whether the good side or the bad side. Your choice. So, like I said, it's a true mark of greatness. If there are people still talking about you now, talking about how great you were, these guys, you could tell a story just by the way you perform, by the way you play. So, I know I'm not the only person who feels this way. When people, like I said, when people can talk about your career, 20 years or more, you've achieved greatness. So, that's the story of life in general. So anyway, sorry for the the huge video. You can follow me on Twitter once again, King Von Jr. 720. Of course, you can subscribe here at King Von Jr. and also have a website called vonsworldnetwork.blogspot.com. I'm out.